everyone. We're doing a live stream of Locked On MLB, and we better do it live because if we're going to be talking about the Chicago White Sox, which we are, let me tell you something. They change so often. One day they're sub 500. The next day they can't be beaten. You have to do it live because in a minute or so, everything will be changed. Nick Murawski of Locked On White Sox are here to join us. This is Locked On MLB.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast where we talk about all of Major League Baseball. And because I'm live, you see me fumbling with the little things on the side. That's what it's all about. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan, from my lower third, which is trying to pop on. There it is. There it is. When you're your own producer and you're doing everything yourself, you don't even know that, but I'm telling you right now, as you can tell by my skills, I'm an Emmy-nominated television producer, which I actually am. And I've been a baseball podcaster for the last decade or so. I've been appeared on TV. I've been a comedian, a filmmaker, a lot of other things, been a teacher. But right now I'm here talking to you, specifically you, about the state of baseball. You can follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on both Twitter and on Instagram. And I am your pal, Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. You know, people have accused me of not, focusing on just either the LA teams or the Northeastern teams. Well, this is, I think, our second White Sox-centric podcast in the last couple of days. But there's a reason why. They're interesting. And they are completely unpredictable. And I don't know what quite to make of them. So I think the best thing to do, instead of me trying to make heads or tails, let's bring in someone who's forgotten more about the White Sox than I'll ever know. Hey, it's not Ben Kaspick. No, that would be terrible. No. It's Nick Murawski of Locked On White Sox. Oh, tech issues. Come on. There you go. Is it back on?
Yeah, you got it, Paul. You got it.
I got it. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Well, by the way, for those of you who are not watching us live, the game between the Mariners and the White Sox ended, 5 minutes ago?
Yeah.
10 minutes ago? So we said when we were doing our texting back and forth, setting this one up, we said, let's hop on when the game ends. And man, we were true to our word today. This was a nail-biter game. This got a lot closer than it should have, especially in that, let's just be kind and call it an interesting ninth inning.
Yeah, I got to give the Mariners a lot of credit. They came into town, 2, 3 in the morning, their time, from that game against Cleveland that had a 4.5-hour rain delay. And they looked a little sluggish at the beginning, but man, they had some fight at the end. Hendricks can be a bit of a cardiac kid, the way he can finish games. He'll make it interesting, but 99-mile-per-hour fastball to end it. Obviously, no shortage of emotion from him, and I think the 5th win now under acting manager Miguel Cairo.
Yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about that final inning where they held up the runner. There was a double that was kind of that Blue Posada type double. I call it Posada because it's like the one he hit off of Pedro in the ALCS. It was not like a rip double into the gap, but they held the runner at third. I thought the game was tied when that ball was hit, and they held the runner at third, and it turned out to be the right call by the third base coach for Seattle because he would have been a dead duck. But I don't know. Maybe I'm an overly aggressive third base coach in my head, but I'm always in the mindset of you have to force them to make a great throw. If it goes up the line, if it's slightly off, all of a sudden the game is tied and it's a whole different thing. But when that ball went over the infield, Were you thinking this game was going to be knotted up, or am I
You,
just
you
too
know,
pessimistic?
the fact that the White Sox made a change and they brought in Adam Engel to play right field, and he didn't start the game. Andrew
Yeah,
Vaughn was out there. If Andrew Vaughn, who is a lifelong first baseman and who's playing outfield for the Chicago White Sox, if he was still out there, I
yeah,
think Seattle would have ran on his arm, as anybody should. He doesn't have
yeah.
a strong, accurate arm. Engel's got speed, and he's got a serviceable arm out there. So I'm not surprised that they decided to, pump the brakes on that.
Right, right. Well, by the way, I got to give a little bit of credit to the White Sox front office this year, and to give some love to Kenny Williams and company and Rick Hahn, because they've picked up who was the big hero today offensively, Elvis Andrus.
Yeah, and
Elvis Andrus,
defensively,
yeah,
yeah.
and especially with the injuries to Moncada and Anderson, to plug in a infielder. He's only been there for like 2 or 3 weeks, I think, for Oakland let him go.
Yeah.
And they found a veteran, and he's played quite well there. Thank you very much, since arriving there and being able to insert a veteran. And today he homered and doubled and showed a great glove. And yes, you'd rather have Tim Anderson out there, of course, at shortstop, but handing the car keys over to a veteran for the last few weeks, I think is one of the reasons why they've been playing right, and you've been having the managers pushing the right buttons. And this is, of course, the same GM who picked Johnny Cueto off the scrap heap earlier this year, and Cueto had an unbelievable couple of weeks in the White Sox turnaround.
Yeah, you can fill multiple episodes on Johnny Cueto. I feel like I have, and just what he has done at his age. And he didn't start the season with the White Sox. That
Nope.
was he joined a little bit later, and what he's been able to do, just quality starts, and he is a joy to watch. So that was huge. Where would the Sox be without Johnny Cueto? Crazy to think about that. And lately, where would the Sox be without Elvis Andrus? I mean, last 7 games, I think 3 home runs, 9 RBIs. He had a big series this past weekend against the Minnesota Twins on the South Side. He plays the game right, much needed after Anderson went down. And then we had a utility guy, Danny Mendick, who was having a great year. He went down for the year. And, we've had a ton of injuries. So to be able to add him to the roster, and now he's hitting in the leadoff spot, and he looks pretty comfortable at it.
Yeah, and the White Sox have proven something that I've been saying for years. I can't remember if I know I talked to one or two of the Locked On hosts about it. I may have brought it up to you. I've been begging teams like the Marlins or the Pirates to adhere to this mindset, which is uh, if you have a chance to plug in a veteran who wants to prove their worth and it costs you nothing, do it. I mean, like think of Andrews, who has been an all-star, has played in the World Series, has played on the highest level, has been a fine player, who was in an Oakland team that was going nowhere in a hurry. And you're not asking him to be an all-star over 162 games. You're asking him to sort of, have that little jolt of adrenaline back and say, "Oh, it's fun to go to a ballpark again and play well." I've always been a big Johnny Cueto fan since he was in Cincinnati. Obviously, he remains the last pitcher to throw a complete game in the World Series with his complete game effort with Kansas City. And he was with the Giants for many years. And even though he really only had one sort of, all-star caliber season with San Francisco, he was always a fan favorite there. And he always, he won some big games for him and contributed to last year's, division title. And I think the fact that the White Sox, there was a bunch of teams that I just felt, why aren't you grabbing at Johnny Cueto right now? And when the White Sox did, look what they got. I mean, is he the ace? No, but he's a solid 2 or 3 for a potential playoff team.
Yeah, when Lance Lynn, when we realized that he was going to have knee surgery and he wasn't going to start the year with the White Sox, front office had to scramble. Great pickup, great scouting on Johnny Cueto to bring him in. And what he has also done is he's been a vocal leader. And, calling the team out, when a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, when there was just no fire and swagger from this White Sox team, a team that was supposed to have fire and swagger. And he, as a veteran, and he's been putting up the numbers. He was able to say that, and people started to listen. Like, wait a second. Yeah, we need to look in the mirror here. We got to figure some things out.
Well, do you know what he did? I'll tell you exactly what he did. He gave the team a big boost of energy, which they desperately needed. Otherwise, they'd be flat. And you know what? It's kind of like when you have a Built Bar. Have you tried the Built Bar Puffs yet? If you're not, you're depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There's a new flavor. Ready? Delicious, indulgent cookie dough covered in chocolate. And that's right, Built Bar has done it again. Let me introduce you, Nick, and everyone else to your new favorite, cookie dough chunk puff. Huh? It's like playing delicious Wordle with those games. Have a light and chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks, and of course, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. All the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of, making cookie dough, which, as we all know, is a long process. Guess what? It's also healthy for you, unlike cookie dough. Cookie dough chunk puffs are only 160 calories and a whopping 15 grams of protein in them. Run, don't walk, or go on your device to built.com and snag a box for you, your family, your loved ones. Heck, Halloween's right around the corner. It'll be the perfect trick or treat. Or you can find a really good hiding place and hoard them for yourself because you're selfish. Like all Built Bars, the new cookie dough chunk puff is covered with 100% real chocolate. You could say that again. That means they're healthy and tasty, and with a light, fluffy texture, they're so good. What's great about Built is that all the bars are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. Eat something that tastes good and is good for you. You, Nick, and everyone else who can hear my voice are going to love the cookie dough chunk puff. Whether you need a snack for your workout, a late night treat, or you just want to grab a bite, Built Bar is the perfect protein bar, and they taste better than a candy bar. Ditch the calories, fat, and sugar. Grab yourself a Built Bar, or as they call them in Boston, a Built Bar. Go to built.com. Use promo code LOCK15. Get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCK15 for Built Bar and sing that jingle with me. Built Bar. Go to built.com. Okay, we're here with Nick Murawski of Locked on White Sox. What's your favorite Built Bar?
There was a brownie, wasn't there, a couple months ago?
Yeah,
and I'm a workout guy. I will have it before a workout, and it's true. They absorb, the water in your system, and I feel like I have more energy. They're very tasty. Love them.
Yeah. I'm a big raspberry. I love the raspberry. I love the tanginess with the strawberry. But there you go. Hey, look at that. We just added to the Built Bar read. We went beyond the script. That's how much we actually love Built Bars. Just wait till the Blue Chew ad later this week. You made a. By the way, one last note about the Monday White Sox Mariner game. Lance Lynn looked great. Struck out 11 Mariners, and as you said, they were coming in a little staggering from the long flight. But you know what? He had to pull it off. 7 innings, 3 hits, no earned runs, 11 strikeouts to 1 walk. I mean, that's the kind of strikeout to walk ratio you kind of sort of want from a starting pitcher.
Yeah, it's his fourth start in a row now where he has allowed 1 earned run or less. So I feel like he is getting into the groove. He was throwing all different kinds of things at the Mariners on Monday night. Changeup, which normally he sticks with a variety of different fastballs. He had it going on. He looked comfortable. He looked in control. I thought maybe he was going to go out for the 8th. I mean, he was at 89 pitches. His innings have been pretty efficient. I have seen too many games where a starter is locked in and they go to the bullpen and, the game kind of starts crumbling after that. But, Graveman kept them in check. But Lance Lynn is a guy that the Sox need down this stretch. Absolutely need. I'm glad he's looking healthy and the numbers are showing it.
And think about this. I mean, I'll jump ahead a little bit here. But if they make the postseason and you have Cease, Cueto, and Lynn, going against whoever would be facing in that wild card round, um, that's pretty solid. That would be as solid as look at. I've been praising Cleveland's pitching all year, and Cleveland does have very good pitching. There's no getting around that. But the White Sox, with their pitching staff, if they make the postseason, and again, I'm putting many horses before the cart here, but there's only 25 some odd games left. They're within they're a modest winning streak and a modest losing streak from the other teams from being in first place by themselves. And at this point of the year, it's basically a coin toss. Um, you put this team, with three good starters, their bats hitting the way that they are, and in a short series against either a flawed Yankee team or a Astros team that may not be having Verlander. Uh, I'm not saying it's 2005 all over again, but I am saying that I give them a better shot this year than I did last year when they won the division and they were a better team overall.
Well, they had what, a 10-game lead in 2021. They won the division comfortably. Yeah. I feel like the last 3 weeks of the season, if not more, didn't mean much. Guys were getting rest, and a lot of fans were saying, well, wait a second, shouldn't we get some momentum going? Shouldn't we get these guys kind of going into the postseason with a running start? But it was all about, rest and this, that, and the other from La Russa and the front office. But right now, every game match, I mean, these guys backs against the wall. They had a team meeting right before the Minnesota series, I think Thursday, Friday, talked about, hey, Miguel Cairo's in charge right now. We don't know when, if ever, if Tony La Russa is coming back. Let's start playing like the team we know we can, have some fun, let it all hang out. And you're right. If I had to take, my chances with Cease, Cueto, and Lynn, I feel pretty confident with it. And with the way the Sox have been playing lately, the last week offensively, hitting multiple home runs in games, that just wasn't happening before. Guys are picking each other up, and it's great to see.
I think one thing that happened last year, and I'm not going to speak for White Sox fans, or this is just my own observation. The fact that the White Sox clinched with about 3 weeks left or something crazy like that, they were the first team to clinch because the rest of the division was there was no other contenders in the division last year. But because of that, they also knew that they knew that Tampa was going to have the top spot and they were going to play the winner of the wild card round. So they knew very early on they were going to play whoever came out of the West. It was very obvious it was going to be Houston. Once Oakland and Seattle, it was clear they weren't going to catch Houston, that it was clear that it was going to be Chicago and Houston. And while that was a fine matchup in 2005, it did not look, it was clearly in the favor of Houston last year. So there was a sort of like 2 weeks of, oh yeah, they're going to be in the playoffs, but we know it's going to be against Houston. And when they lost those first two games, yeah, I know they won the third game and it was a ton of fun and everyone was wearing the black shirts and everything like that. But I just got the sense there was a sense of inevitability of, okay, this is probably not going to, it'll be a huge upset. And they just looked overmatched. This year, I think they will be playing with some, amps behind them. And a little, again, they still have to win the division, but they've been showing that they may be the best equipped team down the stretch. And you're not asking to play the best over 162. You're only asking to play the best over 25 games.
Yeah. I mean, they're a scary team right now, as you and I are talking. They shouldn't be this close. They shouldn't be 2 games behind the Guardians. But nobody wanted to put the Sox away. It almost seems like nobody wants to win the AL Central to begin with. And here the Sox are, with a resurgence. And again, I don't know how good Miguel Cairo is of a manager, but this team is different. And the things that have been said in the media and in the press over the last 4 or 5 days I mean, you don't have to read between the lines. Like the players feel it. They know something different is going on, and the results show it. And if you've watched enough White Sox baseball this year, it's a complete switch in energy. So they've got 4 more still with the Guardians. They've got a bunch of games against the Twins, maybe 6 more games with the Twins. They end the season against the Twins at home. So
Right.
like you had mentioned at the top, I mean, this division, I do think it's going to be a tight one. It's going to come down to the last, week or so, maybe the last few days. It's going to be an exciting brand of baseball, I hope. And the fact that the Sox are here now, even though they shouldn't be, I hope they take advantage of it.
All right, let's do our final segment here with Nick Murawski from Locked On White Sox. I want to bring up something because, again, I just full disclosure, I don't really have a dog in the AL Central fight. I have a soft place in my heart for Cleveland, Minnesota, and Chicago. For me personally, any one of those teams, I wouldn't mind seeing do well. So it's kind of the most interesting thing for me that those 3 teams are in a dogfight, and I'm perfectly fine with any of them winning. You're my guest today, so clearly I'm a rabid White Sox fan today. What you had mentioned about La Russa, and again, I have to always put this disclaimer. La Russa's in the Hall of Fame, as well he should be. He's an all-time great manager. He is. And I've never been a fan of his personally, but I've always obviously you can't help but respect the guy. He's one of the only 2 managers in baseball history to have managed a World Series title in both leagues. He's managed a team to the pennant in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and 2010s. I mean, that's 4 decades with a La Russa managed team in the World Series. You can't help but respect that. But I always thought he was the wrong choice for this White Sox team. We all know this is Jerry Reinsdorf trying to be Superman, spinning the world backwards and redoing it. La Russa had the greatest ride off into the sunset moment by winning Game 7 of the 2011 World Series. He may have had another great moment managing to the playoffs last year and said, okay, look, I still got it, and then write off and make him the vice president of Beans and Franks at Franks and Beans, give him a title. And so you're not firing him. In an odd way, him having this undisclosed illness is the best thing to happen to the White Sox. I hate to say it, but removing him from the team is similar to what happened with Philadelphia. The nanosecond Rob Thompson took over for Joe Girardi, another fine manager who I have tons of respect for. But the team seemed to relax the nanosecond that Thompson took over Philadelphia. And my God, what has the team done since Miguel Cairo took over the White Sox? The proof is right on the field.
Yeah, you didn't want this to go that way. I didn't want La Russa to leave. I wasn't wishing him ill will. I wasn't hoping that he wasn't getting, sick. But a lot of Sox fans, we talked about this throughout the season. If La Russa was to go, they would definitely have to save face. He would have to be protected somehow. And we were thinking, well, maybe he would step away and just say, for family reasons, for whatever.
Well, that's what I was meaning. That's what I was meaning when I said to promote him. Like, say he's actually, he's 80. You know what? The strain of the going on the road. So we're giving a promotion to the front office. That's what I meant by that. It's like a way to have him. We're not firing him. We're actually promoting him. And I don't think a soul in the world would have looked cross-eyed on that.
No, and it was the way it happened. It came after a sweep at the hands of the Arizona Diamondbacks at home.
Yep.
And that was the lowest of the low for me and for a lot of, family members, Sox fans in my life. The fan base was it. I mean, you were seeing signs. I'm sure you saw this: sell the team, banners at Sox Park, sell the team. You haven't seen that before. And here we go, after the Monday loss to the Royals, another dejecting loss. Then we find out second game of the series, he's out indefinitely. And the way the players found out was also really interesting. They found out through social media. Rick
Really?
Hahn, Kenny Williams, Jerry Reinsdorf, nobody spoke to the players directly to tell them what was going on. They just kind of heard it. So that,
Wow.
if you're a conspiracy theorist, I mean, this isn't a far stretch. He might not be coming back, Tony La Russa.
No, I wouldn't. It wouldn't stun me, but wow. So they had to. Wow. The players found out through freaking TikTok.
Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
that's unreal. But like think about the games. I mean, I mentioned you had the crazy walk off game with the hit by pitch and the hit by pitch that wasn't the hit by pitch, and then the infield, and then you had Cease coming within one out of a no hitter. You had today's back and forth game with Seattle. I want to just mention this because not everyone's been paying attention to the White Sox as close as you have. They've been obviously an astonishingly underachieving team that were just a game of that were at 500 at the trade deadline. So you don't know what the hell to do then. And then they went on a great run, and they got to within when they won the first two games against Houston in the middle of August. They got to within one game of first place. And then they just went on a slide. I think they lost like 19 out of 21 games or so. It was something bananas like that, where they went from one game out to 6 games out and 3 or 4 games under 500. And on like the last 2 days of August. So at that point, you say, it's over. You're 6 games out. You're 3 or 4 games under 500. You look dead for the neck up. The season's over. And now, I'm full disclosure right now. The Royals and when we're recording this, the Royals and the Cleveland Guardians are still playing each other. So I don't know what the final result is that's going to be. But worst case scenario is they're going to be the day after Labor Day. Worst case scenario is 2 games out.
Yeah.
With a slew of games against Minnesota and Cleveland and 3 of the best pitchers, especially if Lynn is back to firing on all cylinders. Like his last 2 games, the game he won against Kansas City and the game he won against Seattle this afternoon, he looks like Lance Lynn of old.
Yeah, and they got Luis Robert back, who hasn't played since August 25th. Yohan Moncada will be in the lineup tomorrow. He hasn't seen him since late August. Aaron Bummer is finally back. He hasn't pitched out of the bullpen since June 7th. And Tim Anderson can still come back maybe around September 20th. This team is different. The first game of the Minnesota series where they won that crazy game where we thought it was a hit by pitch, then it wasn't. Yeah. What happened in that game late in the game? Reliever for Minnesota, Lopez is his last name.
They got him from Baltimore. Yeah.
He hit Andrew Vaughn high on the body, upper shoulder, and to load the bases in the 9th. And Andrew Vaughn has already been hit in the face this year. Kind of gave Lopez a look like, what are you doing? Now that wasn't intentional, but still just kind of gave him a look. Lopez kind of lost his mind a little bit and started chirping back. Well, that was a bench clearing moment led by Lance Lynn. He is, from what we understand, a vocal leader. And guess who else is out there yelling at Rocco Baldelli? Miguel Cairo. Would Tony La Russa be doing that? Probably not. Maybe, but I'm going to say probably not. Miguel Cairo was Venezuelan. Who else was Venezuelan? Ozzie Guillen.
Are you going to tell me that Miguel Cairo is going to pull a Mission Impossible, rip the mask off? It's going to be Ozzie underneath there.
Hey, the way this season's been going, I don't
want to get us in trouble with copyright, but hey, by the way, I'm going to throw in another name here because he doesn't have the best stats, but it seems that every single time I check on the White Sox, Gavin Sheets has gone 2 for 3 or got a key hit, or like he always seems to be in the middle of these rallies and comebacks. He may not be the star of the team, but he just strikes me as someone who is that spark plug that keeps rallies moving and everything like that. Am I overestimating his value, or am I just being selective in the highlights I've seen, or is Cheats really just sort of spent this second half of the season being a big part of it?
He's had a tale of 2 different seasons. He spent a few weeks down in AAA, and he credits that time in Charlotte is a key factor in helping him just understand his approach a little bit better. I don't have to drive everything. I don't have to pull everything. If there's an outside pitch, I can take it the opposite way, just kind of flick it for a base hit and live to see another day where I might get a fastball to my liking and drive that over the fence, which he has been doing a lot of. The problem with Gavin Sheets is he's kind of a man without a home. He's a natural first baseman, and we have too many of those on the White Sox. So he is being pushed out to right field, and he's not a right fielder. And, he's been struggling out there. I know he's trying to get better, but game on the line, there's going to be a defensive replacement for sure. So with a righty on the mound, Gavin Sheets has been seeing a lot of playing time, and he has been a different guy since the beginning of the season for sure. I mean, for a while there, he was the only guy providing any power for the White Sox.
Well, we got the Labor Day is in our rearview mirror. And in some ways that I think about how you break the season down, there's a couple of checkpoints. Like Memorial Day is roughly the 1/3 mark of the season. And then you have like the All-Star break where you can sort of assess where you are. You have the trade deadline. I think Labor Day is the last sort of marker before the end. Like now there's less than a month. And when you think about, when you imagine looking at the standings in April and trying to treat them like they're worth anything. And he's like, it's only 25, 26 games. It's like, it doesn't tell you anything. Well, that's the amount of games we have left. So you have three teams that, again, as we're recording right now, Cleveland is ahead of Kansas City, but only by one. So who knows? The KC can come back. You could potentially have three teams within one game of each other. And at that point, all the prognosticating and scouting and everything means exactly diddly. And it just comes down to, I mean, look at like matchups we've had even this last week where you had the Nationals going into I almost said Shea Stadium to Citi Field. You had Patrick Corbin, who's having a historically horrible year, against Max Scherzer. The Nationals win that game. And the Nationals wound up smacking around St. Louis, who looked like world beaters. So you have bad teams saying, hey, this is our last chance to have a meaningful moment. So you just, at this point, every game is just flip a coin. And, but if you have to flip a coin, it's good if 60% of your starts are by Cueto, Cease, and Lance Lynn. And I hate to say it, all due respect, without having some of the decisions being made by La Russa at this point.
Absolutely. Again, I'll say it again. The Sox should have been buried a long time ago. The fact that they weren't, they believe now. Now they're starting to believe after this week of baseball, and it's been high energy. And, they've been known this season not to win the first game of a series. The numbers are crazy. What did they do? They won the first game of the series against Minnesota. What did they do on Monday? They won the first game against Seattle. And the West Coast has been tough for the White Sox over the years. I don't know how things are going to work out the rest of this week. But again, this is a different team right now. And they're getting some guys healthy. Kopech should be back as well. It's exciting. It really is for Sox fans.
Well, Johnny Cueto is going on Tuesday against Logan Gilbert. Logan Gilbert's a fine pitcher for Seattle. The other two to keep an eye on, the Yankees. Who the hell knows what you're getting out of the Yankees these days? Some days they look like a AAA team. Some days they look like world beaters. You have Garrett Cole going up against Joe Ryan. Again, I have no idea who Garrett Cole is anymore. Sometimes I'm like, he's the Cy Young front runner, and sometimes he should be DFA'd. And then Shane Bieber is pitching for Cleveland. Obviously, Bieber is an outstanding pitcher, but he's had dumb luck. And Chris Bubeck, who a grand total, the Bubeck family knows who he is, but he's actually pitched well occasionally. So he's a talent. So you don't know. Every single day, it's going to be like this. And it's going to be so, if you're a White Sox fan, it's going to be cardiac time. But if you're like me, the puppet master sitting from behind, just sort of watching it from afar, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Well,
Absolutely.
Nick Murawski, thanks so much for jumping on the show today. This was kind of last minute, but I've been wanting to have you on as I've been watching this surreal White Sox season unfolding. I've been saying for the last couple of weeks, this is going to be a year where the pennant winner from the American League is going to be someone that you go, huh?
Mm.
Kind of like when there's kind of like when the Royals won the pennant in 2014, or there's a couple of years where the Cardinals won the pennant with only 80 some odd wins. I really think because the Yankees are incredibly vulnerable and the Astros don't have Verlander, and may not have him for the postseason, I think it's anybody's postseason if you punch your ticket. And if you're doing it with three good starting pitchers, it could be the White Sox.
Yeah, I mean, why not the White Sox at this point? That should be the mantra right now. Why not? Why not us? It's they've got new life and they're going to take advantage of it.
I mean, this could be like when the Rockies won the pennant in 07. Now,
Oof.
granted, that took one of the most unbelievable final 2 weeks of any, and also took the collapse of the Mets and San Diego. But that's a subject for hell. That could be that final month of the 07. That could be an entire Ken Burns episode. But I digress. Nick Murawski, where can people follow you and your show?
Follow me on Twitter at Nick_GGTB and host of Locked on White Sox. You can find that podcast absolutely everywhere you find your podcasts.
Well, hey, and you can find our show on Twitter and Instagram, same handle, which is Locked on MLB Pods. And if you see my lower third right there, I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Hey, thanks so much for making Locked on MLB your first listen every day. And your second listen, have that be Locked on White Sox. Who are we kidding? But your third, check out the Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022, an 8-episode extravaganza to get you ready for the NFL season. The local team experts of the Locked On Podcast Network, plus a betting angle from Lee Sterling of Locked On Bets, all combining into one ultimate NFL preview. Search for the Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Talking about the White Sox, a team that goes up and down so fast you might get the bends. With Nick Murawski of Locked On White Sox, I am your host of Locked On MLB, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please, I'm begging you, have a Built Bar and call me Sully.